90 minutes, you can get away with scaring people 3 or 4 times.
Get back in the car!
For something like this, over 10 hours, the rules are very different.
There's something in the house!
I want to build a sense of tension and to sustain it as long as possible.
All the way through, I want to see you guys scared this entire time, okay?
Horror has been changing. It got to a point where the genre was content just to startle people. Now we're seeing audiences are much more sophisticated. In our show, I wanted to go back to when horror was actually about something much more profound than just being afraid. One of the things that I believe is that our lives are full of ghosts. I think they take a lot of forms, and they can be regrets and memories and shame and grief and guilt and all sorts of things. For an audience, it's about forcing them to look at things that are uncomfortable in the safe space that the genre creates.
Working with Mike Flanagan has been absolutely great. He brings a great spirit to the set, and he spent a lot of time thinking about this story and thinking about how he was going to film it visually.
He's gonna come forward. He doesn't flinch out this way.
He has a really unique way into horror. It's very true to the genre, but he will always go for a more complex character and a deeper version of something. He is the true definition of an auteur.
He knows the material in and out to the point where if anyone is sometimes slightly confused, he always has an answer.
The way you move the camera and what you show and what you don't show is the fundamental notion that what you don't see is scarier than what you do. Mike envisioned that from day one. He did this by framing carefully, by planning what kind of camera moves, show us what when. He has a lot of red meat in this for horror fans.
I have to tell you something. Your mother, she was not sick. She wasn't crazy, and neither are you.
I hope audiences will absolutely embrace a truly complex human story that happens to be wrapped in the skin of horror.
You know what I'm talking about. Don't pretend that you don't.
You know, I gotta ask. Folks around town, they've always talked about this place. What? Is it haunted?
You know.
Hill House, not sane, stood by itself against its hills, holding darkness within.
8:35, take 4.
Our show is about a mom and dad and 5 kids, and a brief summer in Hill House. More important than the horror for me was always the human drama. If we loved these characters, and if we truly could empathize with them on a personal level, we wouldn't be able to stop ourselves from being afraid for them. Olivia and Hugh were kind of model parents.
She's an architect and married a contractor. I designed them and
Daddy built them.
The Crane family finds this house in rural Massachusetts, and of course it all goes horribly wrong.
We catch up with this family 25 years later, but all of them were traumatized by a night that became famous worldwide.
I can't imagine what it was like living at the most famous haunted house in America.
It wasn't famous when we moved in.
The oldest kid is Stephen.
Throughout the story, he sees ghosts, but he doesn't realize they're ghosts.
Stephen decided to write a book about his childhood, basically about everything that you experienced. Dad said it was haunted.
When he said those things, he believed them. You never did.
Shirley is the second child. She is the one who is reliable and responsible. She's grown up to become a funeral director.
She wants to take care of her siblings, but they have their own sets of issues.
She can be really tough because she wants to protect her family, and you feel the tension building.
They said you could live here. I wasn't expecting the pussy parade. You're worse than a guy. You're like a frat guy.
The next sibling is Theo. In the brief time that she spent in Hill House, something changed in her.
She sees lots of scary things sometimes.
your grandmother was like that too. She was sensitive.
Her 2 older siblings don't believe in ghosts, whereas the twins below her definitely believe in ghosts.
You're scared, I can tell. How? Because I'm scared.
Luke and Nell have the most intense supernatural experiences in the house out of anyone.
There's something down here.
They're the
only ones that really like see and believe each other.
They're told that they're imagining.
They never believe me.
And so that carries out into their adult life in quite a serious way.
The ghosts of our story not only exist on the screen to scare us, but also exist in the souls and in the minds of our characters, because every single person on screen is haunted by something. I sat down to write the script for 106 and realized that a lot of the camera choreography needed to be incorporated into the draft itself, because we were doing 18-page scenes without any cuts. I wanted an episode that would appear to take place essentially in real time in one single shot. Piece of cake. It turned into a challenge unlike anything else I've ever had in production. The set had to actually be constructed with this episode in mind. We knew that we had certain shots that were going to require us to walk through the house in its entirety. I'm getting Theo's first line at the banister so you can see your face.
Yeah. Instead of spending 30 to 45 minutes setting up an individual shot, you spend several days planning, lighting, choreographing, blocking.
Because after the first clap, you got to start with it.
They've programmed every single lighting cue. So not only is there lightning, there's also individual beauty lighting cues, and there's water coming in the fireplace, and there are ghosts appearing and disappearing. All of those things are laid out very clearly in Mike's mind.
He spent a lot of time thinking about this story and thinking about how he was going to film it visually. So when you approach the scene, all of that is thought out and prepared.
Every shot was the product of 100 people standing on each other's shoulders and having to execute dozens or hundreds of tasks.
Everyone has to be absolutely in sync with each other, and if one thing is off, the take is gone. You're trying to capture lightning in a bottle, but you just have to get it once.
When you're sitting at monitor watching this happen, you start to get 10, 11, 12 minutes in, and then you start like, oh God, please let us get through this, please let us get through this.
At a certain point, you're really thinking, like, the one thing I don't want to do is mess this up.
Right now, can't do it.
No, but you also can't play it safe because that would be boring. So you have to sort of go for it. You let her believe all that bullshit. All that bullshit about Hill House, and this is the inevitable conclusion, which makes you culpable, frankly.
We got through it based on the efforts and the concentration of our cast and crew.
It's just amazing because it feels somewhere between a play and a show and a film.
It's one of the most exciting things I've ever done.
The quality of work you guys are doing, it's really breathtaking. Thanks for all of that, and then I can't wait to see this one.
There's not a single record of this basement. It's not on any of the blueprints. They didn't want anyone to find it, but you did.
The greatest thing is Mike wrote the series from start to finish. So he has a mental picture of everything that's going to come on screen. This finger extension is for the bowler hat man. They were able to color and match once they got them on him. This was a prosthetic leg that was created for the basement ghost. This is a beautiful piece. This is one of the more tedious, long projects that we have. We cast Victoria Pedratti's entire body and were able to duplicate it. When the funeral home would get a body that has had the autopsy, it's loosely stitched. So we were able to get photos and recreate that look exactly. It obviously freaked her out a little bit to see her own body laying on an autopsy table. Adding things in post is not what we're about.